Guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. Today I wanted to jump right into it, talk about what's going on, but not so much the politics of it, because depending on where you live in the world, depending on what's going on, depending on what news you're given, depending on what propaganda you've seen so far, it's pretty easy to get on one side or the other. What I want to talk about today instead is the fact that it's very quick. You notice things change very quick, and I'm not blaming Russia for this, and I'm not blaming Ukraine for this, and that they have bought onto the propaganda. But it's very easy today for everybody to call out men and say they're problematic, that the patriarchy, that all the isms and phobias and everything else. And of course, the United States military has gone right on down this by pushing out diversity, and NATO has done the same thing, and the UN has done the same thing, where they've put out commercials talking about how diverse and it is our strength and everything else. But when it really hits the fan, when it really comes down to it, it is men that carry the burden of war. It's men that carry the weight of battle on their backs, and most of the time, at least the vast majority of soldiers and men out there, they're not making any decisions. They just get told what to do, and they're rather chess pieces on a chessboard. One thing that I wanted to talk about, and something to keep in mind during this whole thing, is number one, it's very easy to armchair quarterback, and I have my feelings on what's going on, and I'm usually on the side of the non-aggressors, the ones that are defending themselves against aggressors, which, of course, as you guys know, would very much put me at odds with a lot of what the United States has done over the last 100 years. Although, I guess it was good that we were aggressors at one point, because that's how we became a country back in 1776. But that being said, what I think is important to remember out of all of this is that there are real men on both sides, and that it's real men that are paying the price for this. And, when I was a young guy, 18 years old, I did not want to do college. I did college for a semester. I said, I'm not really feeling this right now. I'm kind of burnt out on school. I want to do something else. And I joined the military. And I was told, oh, it's a great way to make college money. It's a great way to defend your country. And then in 91, 92, I was in 92 to 96, we kicked off Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and we went over into Iraq and everything else. So, then at that point, I become one of the pawn pieces that is all of a sudden an aggressor going into another country. Again, whether you think it was warranted or justified or not, you find out, hey, maybe I signed up for something, and all of a sudden I'm being involved in something I may or may not agree with. I may or may not want to do, but you don't have a choice, because if you say I'm not partaking in this, then you can be held as a prisoner by your own government. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case here, but what I am saying is that you take, for example, this gentleman, and again, keep in mind some of this may be propaganda. We don't know. But I'm hearing multiple stories of, like this guy here. This gentleman is 80 years old. He showed up with a briefcase with supposedly sandwiches and a couple of change of underwear and clothes. And he's signing up to defend his country. And he said he's doing it for his grandchildren. And, I could see something like this happening. And the same token here. Now, this, again, they've said that this is a gentleman that is leaving to fight for Ukraine. Others have said, actually, no, that's propaganda, that this is a gentleman that is along the border of Russia, and he wants to become a separatist and join Russia, so he's going to be fighting against Ukraine. Either doesn't matter. Again, if you look at the big picture and which side of the line you fall on. But what I want you to see is his reaction to saying goodbye to his family and his daughter. She gives him a little bit of a picture or a note. He gives her a hug, and he picks her up, and he's crying and holding her, and his wife comes out. And again, when you get down to this level, the men involved, a lot of them are not signing up for this. A lot of them do not desire this, and a lot of them don't want to do it. Or a lot of them feel they have to do it as a defense, or to do what they feel is right. The important thing to remember out of all of this is, again, when things get troubled, when it hits the fan, when people are concerned about what is going on in the world, they come back and they start looking for strong men. They look for smart men. They look for dedicated men. They look for men that will step up and fight the cause. And all of a sudden, the patriarchy is good again, and strong men are good again, and men that will make sacrifice are good again. And I think what hurts my feelings or bothers me the most about this is that men are never appreciated until they're needed. And then when they're needed, they're expected to step up, perhaps even throw their life away for a cause, for a country, for people that are sitting behind desks in meetings, making all the plans, all the moves, all the decisions, and they have little to no say in it, and they put their lives up for risk. So again, I don't know which side of this you guys fall on. I don't know which way you feel about it, but I can say this much. No matter what side it falls on, no matter whether you're pro this or against this, remember this, that when things get tough, when things get hard, they start looking for good men again to protect them and to allow them to continue to live the lives that they've lived, or allow them to maintain the status quo, or allow them to gain more power. But they always need men to do this. And these men, many of them, again, depending on which side you want to look at this, doesn't matter. Many of them will do so knowing that they are making their lives forfeit, or they may lose their lives, or they're, in some cases, maybe even throwing their lives away, but they're doing so for the betterment of the world through their eyes. Again, whether you agree on which side or not. So keep that in mind, that as we see these conflicts, as we see these things happening, as we go forward, remember that good men are dying. And remember that the establishments that attack men and tell them that they're worthless or hopeless, or that what they're doing is bad, the minute that they need men, they have no problems coming out, asking for their help, expecting them to sacrifice themselves for whatever cause, and then they'll put up some statues and some memorabilia in honor of them, and they move on with their lives. And this puts me in a very tough place, because at one point in my life, I would have gladly given my life to protect my country and to make sure that freedom was maintained. And I would have done it at the government's behest. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I think now I would do it for myself. I would do it for maybe my neighborhood. I would do it for my family. But as you see governments attacking men, and college programs supporting women more than men, and men being told that they're the problems to society, how many men really want to step up and defend the society that is calling them names and putting them down and hurting them? And so I guess I'm trying to say is just remember the men that are giving themselves to these conflicts. Remember the politicians that do so gleefully, in some cases, that do so and use these men, the same men that in many cases they attack and they put down. So just remember the men that are sacrificing themselves, because I think that's what we forget most of the time, that there are real lives involved, real people with real families. And while it may seem like they're on the other side of the world from you, or that you don't agree with them politically, it's still the men that need to pay the price. And some do it willingly, some don't. But it always lands on the men's shoulders, even though society says that we're not worth much anymore. So keep this in mind, guys. Me personally, I've been to Kyiv. I know the Europeans and American say it is Kiev, but the Ukrainians in Kyiv pronounced it Kyiv. That's why I say Kyiv. I've been to that country. They were beautiful, friendly people. They were kind. They were tough. They were resilient, and I'm disappointed to see this happen. And whether you want to blame it on NATO or the government of Russia or whoever, those aren't the ones that are going to fight at the front lines. and they're going to make these sacrifices. And so this whole situation breaks my heart. But just remember the men that are taking place and giving up their families and their lives and their freedoms to make this happen. No dating profile of the day. I'm not really in a jovial mood to joke around too much. I'm sticking to the news. If you guys want to see more news as I cover stuff like this, instead of doing it on Better Bachelor here on YouTube, if you're here on YouTube, I do it on betterbachelor.locals.com. That's where I talk more about news and current events and things that are not really related to the Bachelor lifestyle, although this kind of stuff does affect men, which is why I talk about it a little bit here on YouTube. So join me over there, and I need about 250 more supporters to hit my goal of being kind of free of YouTube's draconian ways that they are. So join me over there. I'd appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.